everybody. Yesterday we got some big signing news just a couple days after Alexander Barkov signed his huge extension with Florida. Mika Zibanejad was locked up by the New York Rangers on an 8-year deal worth $8.5 million per season. And I want to talk about why I think this was the right move for the New York Rangers, and all in all, a very good deal for a young up-and-coming team that is really building something in New York and probably going to be a cup contender sooner rather than later. So before we get fully into it, I just ask you, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. It helps out so much and is greatly appreciated. But man, the Rangers locking up one of their most important players, their number one center, Mika Zibanejad, I really like this deal for the New York Rangers. One, getting him at under $9 million, I think, is a team-friendly cap hit. I know that they made the deal a little bit longer than they were hoping for, and Zibanejad's already 28 years old. He'll be 29 when this kicks in. So this deal carries him until he's 37, and it's a little bit longer than they were hoping for. But, in my opinion, it is well worth the extra years at the end, 1 or 2 years at the end, to get the cap hit lower, especially for a team that has as many guys on ELCs as they do and as many young up-and-coming players as they do, that they're not going to be making $750K. They're not going to be making $800K, $900K for very much longer. These guys, these young stars, are all going to need much, much bigger contracts down the road. So when you look at the Rangers' cap situation long term, they needed this cap hit to be as low as they could possibly get it. And getting Zibanejad under $9 million, I think, is an absolute win for the Rangers, because he's a player that, if he had hit the open market, easily could have gotten 9, maybe even could have gotten 10, depending on the kind of year that he has this year. So getting him at $8.5 million, I think, is a good cap hit for the New York Rangers, and it keeps one of their most important players in place. And when you look at what Zibanejad has done with the Rangers and just his career progression here, I mean, you look at when he first came to New York, I mean, he had 37 points in 56 games. He was a good player, but he was certainly not some superstar standout. But then in 2018-19, he really had his breakout into stardom. He had 74 points, played all 82 games that year, 30-goal season, which was his first 30-goal season. And then he followed it up in 2019-20 by scoring 41 goals in 57 games, had 75 points, which was a new career high. And one can only imagine, if he had played all of the Rangers games that year, what he would have been able to accomplish numbers-wise. Then last year, obviously shortened season, 56 games, and he had a down year last year by his standards, certainly. 50 points in 56 games, 24 goals, 26 assists. He got off to a very, very bad start in 2021. But he got better as the season went along. The Rangers got better as the season went along. And Zibanejad was back to his old self by the end of last season. So this is a big year upcoming for him, but I truly believe that we're getting back to a full 82-game season. The Rangers are getting better. I fully believe that Mika Zibanejad has 40-goal, 90-point potential for this season. And if you have a 90-point player at $8.5 million, that's a pretty good contract, because there are 90-point players making, $1 million more than that, sometimes more. So, getting him at that deal, I think, is a very, very good move. And when we look at the Rangers and their situation and roster and cap and long-term and everything, I mean, they've got Zibanejad locked up now, they've got Kreider locked up, and they've got Artemi Panarin locked up. Those are your 3 veteran guys, and they have Trouba locked up on the back end for another 5 years. So you've got Trouba locked up on the back end, and then you've got Panarin, Kreider, and Zibanejad locked up front. Those are your veteran guys that you are building this team around, and then you are letting the young guys filter in. Ryan Strome's a UFA after this season. I think if Philip Hedel can come in and take the 2C spot, and I think they're hoping that Hedel can show 2C potential, Ryan Strome becomes expendable, and that opens up $4.5 million at the end of this season. Obviously, they just signed Barclay Goodrow to his big contract. He's third line muscle. He's grit. That's what he's there for. But look at all the young guys and the guys on ELCs that they have. Morgan Barron, Vitaly Kravtsov, Capo Caco, Alexei Lafreniere. I mean, these guys are all on ELCs. They're making $925K this year. When those ELCs are up, they're all going to be getting significant raises. When we go look at the back end, Adam Fox is still on his ELC. Keandre Miller is still on his ELC. Nils Lundqvist is just starting his ELC. Like, when these guys' ELCs are up, they're going to be getting significant raises. Now, by that time, Libor Hayek is probably gone. Jared Tenorti certainly will be gone after this 2-year deal. And then Nemeth will have 1 year left when Miller needs to re-sign. But like, Shesterkin's locked in goal. I think Georgiev's probably expendable, especially if Shesterkin really solidifies himself as the number one. They'll just go with, a veteran backup, maybe, 1 year, $1 million or $1 million a year, something like that. I think Georgiev probably finds his way out, and they go with a cheaper option as far as the backup goaltending is concerned. Then you have the whole dead cap thing where Lundqvist comes off the books after this season, so there's $1.5 million dead cap coming off the books, and then Girardi, Shattenkirk, and D'Angelo are all off after 2022-23, so that's going to open up about $3.4 million between the three of them. So this is a good deal. They're setting themselves up. They know that in the future a lot of these guys are going to be getting significant raises. They're probably not going to be able to keep everybody. There's no doubt about it. They're not going to be able to keep everybody. And then I haven't even gotten to the prospects that are down here. I mean, some of the prospects that they have, like Othman, who they just drafted, guys like Will Cooley, who should be coming up sooner rather than later, and then Zach Jones on the back end is going to be an NHLer. Braden Schneider, like they've got so many guys, honestly, that are still up and coming, and that's they're one of the youngest teams while still locking in this veteran core. But my point is that they've identified who they're building around. They know that they need some veteran guys in the lineup. You can't just throw out a bunch of guys in their early and mid 20s. They've locked up Panarin, they've locked up Kreider, now they've locked up Zibanejad. Those are their core pieces in the up front, and then you have the Lafrenieres and the Kakos and the Kravtsovs and the other guys coming up who are young and whatnot up front, but are going to be playing significant roles in this lineup, if not this year. Some of them certainly this year, but if not this year, very, very soon. And they've got themselves deals where they're going to be able to sign a majority of these guys. So I think they've set themselves up relatively well for their cap situation long term, about as well as you could, because obviously the cap does exist and you're not going to be able to literally keep everybody, but they've set themselves up to a point where they're going to be able to keep most, and they also have locked in these core veteran pieces that are mainstays of this team. And the other thing is that the Rangers have been involved heavily with a lot of rumors and just talk about trades and possibly getting Jack Eichel and possibly getting Tomas Hertl, and like every center that comes on the market all of a sudden the New York Rangers are in on. Well, this puts that mostly to bed. I mean, they've just locked up Zibanejad as their number one center. They are out on Jack Eichel. The New York Rangers are not going after Jack Eichel after signing Zibanejad for $8.5 million per year. So that just kind of eliminates some of those distractions this year, eliminates those rumors and all that talk, and they've committed now. They've committed to Zibanejad. Zibanejad's been very good for them. They're committed to him long term. They're committed to Panarin. They're committed to Kreider. They're committed to Trouba. They've given Shesterkin a pretty nice deal in goal. So they've really identified who their long-term pieces are. and then they've left themselves enough room to get their young long-term pieces like Lafreniere and like Kako and the guys like that who are still on ELCs but aren't going to be forever. So all in all, I think the Rangers have done a pretty nice job, a really nice job of building this team, making pretty smart decisions, doing a good job of identifying who they want for the long run and who's a little bit more expendable, Pavel Buchnevich, for example, and really, making that decision to set themselves up for long-term success. This is a team that I think is going to be successful this year. I have making the playoffs this year, but is not just going to be a playoff team, but a full-on cup contender in the very near future. And, obviously that's the goal, to win the Stanley Cup. So with what Zibanejad brings to the table, which I believe is 40 goal, 90-point potential, this is a very, very good deal, a smart deal for the New York Rangers. I like them committing to him because he's played well for them. No, last year was a little bit of a down year, but in the second half of the season, he was back to the old Mika Zibanejad, and I have really high hopes for what he's going to be able to do this season. And I think he's a really important piece of the puzzle in New York. And as long as, you got to keep those main pieces in place if you're going to have long-term success. So big fan of this deal. Think the Rangers are doing a very nice job building a contender. And it's happening. It's just going to be how soon are these young guys really ready to have that huge impact. And if it's this season, this team could be really, really good. So that's just my opinion on why I think it was the right move for the New York Rangers to lock up Mika Zibanejad and keep him as their number one center. And he's going to be in New York for a long, long time now. Maybe even the rest of his career. We'll have to wait and see. But certainly with this 8-year extension, most of the rest of his career at least is going to be spent with the New York Rangers. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our memberships, merchandise store, and donation links are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys soon.